So a few years ago, they made a musical of the story of Buddy the Elf, and it's got a lot of really cute songs in it. And Warner Brothers approached us about doing a thing where we mash up the best elements from the movie and some of the great songs, and just come up with a slightly new storyline for these characters. And it's been a really cool challenge, and it's been fun infusing those songs into the Buddy the Elf story. So our version of this story is being told in stop motion animation, which is classically and indelibly linked with the holidays for so many different reasons. But I think people are really going to react to the charm of the process, strangely enough, because you see all the imperfections and you can tell that hands made this thing, and that it was made by people. You can feel the love and care that goes into a project like this, and I think that all really comes through and just enhances the story. If anything, it doesn't, it ends up giving it that handmade charm that you would, have from like a handmade quilt or something else. It's you can tell that it's not generated by a computer, which actually counts for something these days when everything is. Directing a stop motion project, I find a lot of people would probably find it very maddening, but I actually really love the process. Sure, you only produce 5 seconds a day of footage per stage when you're shooting, but the 5 seconds you do get is really awesome, and it's unlike anything else you're going to see in any other animated medium. It's a very gratifying process, I find, because you have such control over every last nuance of the characters. When you're animating, you're like the little god of that miniature world for a while, which is really fun. The stop motion process is one that probably most directors would find fairly maddening and just too slow and too tedious, but I kind of get into the sort of zen mode when working with stop motion. I mean, we've got a really cool group of people who are all on the same wavelength about the style that we're trying to do with all the acting with the characters, because each character, that's the cool thing about animating, is you can caricature each performance for each character in a very differently stylized way. One of the things that would probably drive most people crazy is the fact that you only really shoot about 5 or 6 seconds of footage in a day. But the footage, when you watch it at the end of that day, it's not really like any other performance you're going to see anywhere else. It's really something special, and it takes so much effort to create this that it's not something that you would casually get into. You only do this type of animation if you're super passionate about it, because it requires so much work and so many long hours and so much dedication. But I think that level of commitment to the art form itself actually shows through in the final product. So Buddy is played in this iteration by Jim Parsons, who was really amazing. He got the character right away. He just came in, tried out a few voices, and just was pretty much immediately there. And he, this was kind of cool. The process for this was pretty cool compared to other projects we've done, because Jim got to come in and actually watch a bunch of the animation that we had done first. So he could kind of see how the character was physically acting, and he could hopefully, use a little bit of that for his vocal performance. And usually it's done the opposite way. Usually we record the voices first, and then we take that vocal performance and then add the physical performance later in the animation, and it helps you synchronize things and all that stuff. But on this project, we actually mixed it up, and we did most of the animation first. So we were able to bring a video file in for Jim to have in front of him while he was recording the voices, and he seemed to be having a good time watching the animation and acting it out with the animation as he was doing the voice, and I think he did a really great job with it. Well, usually when we're working with the voice talent on something, a lot of times we're not looking for realism, strangely enough. I think a lot of times you're trying to go for the most realistic, a lot of times in a lot of animated projects, they're going for the most realistic or naturalistic performance. But on this, that would be maybe like a little bit too sentimental. This project has to have a little bit of anarchy to it because Buddy is so goofy and out of control a lot of times. So a lot of times what we're looking for in voice talent is some voice that is a kind of otherworldly sounding and doesn't just sound like a normal person's voice. We want something that will go along with an animated character. Like, you want the voice to be caricatured just the way that animation is a caricature of realistic movement. You kind of, when we're approaching this, we want the voices to also be caricatured in a way, but not usually if it's somebody just trying to make a wacky voice. That's not really where it's coming from. It's more like you have to have somebody with an animated quality in their natural personality, and not just a realistic sounding guy's voice. Because if Buddy, with his strange, elongated physiognomy, you know, if that just had a regular guy's voice coming out of it, it would just be there would be sort of a weird disconnect there. And I think Jim took the voice into this really cool zone where he had this sort of, his voice was cracking a little bit here and there, and it just added a nice little bit of energy in the character. I thought he did a really nice job with that.